Dialogue between Franklin and the Gout by Benjamin Franklin. Midnight, 22nd of October, 1780. Franklin. What have I done to merit these cruel sufferings? Gout. Oh, many things. You've ate and drank too freely, and too much indulged in those legs of yours in their indolence. Well, who is it that accuses me? It is I, even I, the Gout. What? My enemy in person? No, not your enemy. I repeat it, my enemy, for you would not only torment my body to death, but ruin my good name. You reproach me as a glutton and a tippler. Now all the world that knows me will allow that I am neither the one nor the other. All the world may think as it pleases. It is always very complacent to itself, and sometimes to its friends. But I very well know that the quantity of meat and drink proper for a man who takes a reasonable degree of exercise would be too much for another who never takes any. I take as much exercise as I can, Madam Gout. You know my sedentary state, and on that account it would seem, Madam Gout, as if you might spare me a little, seeing it is not altogether my own fault. Not a jot. Your rhetoric and your politeness are thrown away. Your apology avails nothing. If your situation in life is a sedentary one, your amusements and your recreation at least should be active. You ought to walk or ride, or if the weather prevents that, play at billiards. But let us examine your course of life. While the mornings are long and you have the leisure to go abroad, what do? Why, instead of gaining an appetite for breakfast by solitary exercise, you amuse yourself with books, pamphlets, or newspapers, which commonly are not worth the reading. Yet you eat an inordinate breakfast, 4 dishes of tea with cream, and 1 or 2 buttered toasts with slices of hung beef, which I fancy are not things the most easily digested. Immediately afterwards you sit down to write at your desk, or converse with persons who apply to you on business. Thus the time passes, till one without any kind of bodily exercise. But all this I could pardon in regard, as you say, to your sedentary condition. But what is your practice after dinner? Walking in the beautiful gardens of those friends with whom you've dined would be the choice of men of sense. But yours is to be fixed down to chess, where you're found engaged for 2 or 3 hours. This is your perpetual recreation, which is the least eligible of any for a sedentary man, because instead of accelerating the motion of the fluids, the rigid attention it requires helps to retard the circulation and obstruct internal secretions. Wrapped in the speculations of this wretched game, you destroy your constitution. Well, what can be expected from such a course of living but a body replete with stagnant humors, ready to fall prey to all kinds of dangerous maladies if I, the Gout, did not occasionally bring you relief by agitating those humors and so purifying or dissipating them? It was in some nook or alley in Paris, deprived of walks, that you played a while at chess after dinner, and this might be excusable. But the same taste prevails you in Passy, in Auteuil, in Montmartre, in Senoy, in places where there are the finest gardens and walk, and a pure air, a beautiful woman, and most agreeable and instructive conversation, all of which you might enjoy by frequenting the walks. But these are rejected for this abominable game of chess. Fie, then, Mr. Franklin. But amidst my instructions, I'd almost forgot to administer my wholesome corrections. So take that twinge, and that. As much instruction as you please, Madam Gout, and as many reproaches. But pray, madam, a truce with your corrections. Well, no, sir. No, I will not abate a particle of what is so much for your good, and therefore, it's not fair to say I take no exercise when I do very often, going out to dine and returning in my carriage. Well, that of all imaginable exercises is the most slight and insignificant, if you allude to the motion of a carriage suspended on springs. By observing the degree of heat obtained by different kinds of motion, we may form an estimate of the quantity of exercise given by each. Thus, for example, if you turn out to walk in winter with cold feet, In an hour's time, you'll be in a glow all over. Ride on horseback, the same effect will scarcely be perceived by 4 hours round trotting. But if you loll in a carriage such as you've mentioned, well, you may travel all day and gladly enter the last inn to warm your feet by a fire. Flatter yourself then no longer that a half an hour's airing in your carriage deserves the name of exercise. Providence has appointed few to roll in carriages, while he's given to all a pair of legs, which are machines infinitely more commodious and serviceable. Be grateful then and make proper use of yours. Would you know how they forward the circulation of their fluids in the very action of transporting you from place to place, and observe when you walk that all your weight is alternately thrown from one leg to the other. Well, this occasions a great pressure on the vessels of the foot and repels their contents. When relieved by the weight being thrown on the other foot, the vessels of the first are allowed to replenish, and by a return of this weight, the repulsion again succeeds, thus accelerating the circulation of the blood. The heat produced in any given time depends on the degree of this acceleration. The fluids are shaken and the humors attenuated, the secretions facilitated, and all goes well. The cheeks are ruddy, and health is established. Behold your fair friend at Auteuil, a lady who received from bounteous nature more really useful science than a half a dozen such pretenders to philosophy as you've been able to extract from all your books. When she honors you with a visit, it is on foot. She walks all hours of the day and leaves indolence and its concomitant maladies to be endured by her horses. Well, in this see at once the preservative of her health and personal charms. But when you go to Auteuil, you must have your carriage, though it is no farther from Passy to Auteuil than from Auteuil to Passy. Your reasonings grow very tiresome. Oh, I stand corrected. I'll be silent and continue my office. Take that and that. Talk on, I pray you. No. I have a good number of twinges for you tonight, and you may be sure of some more tomorrow. What? With such a fever? I shall go distracted. Can no one bear it for me? Well, ask that of your horses. They've served you faithfully. How can you so cruelly sport with my torments? Sport? I am very serious. I have here a list of offenses against your own health distinctly written, and can justify every stroke inflicted on you. Oh, read it then. Oh, it is too long a detail, but I will briefly mention some particulars. Proceed. I am all attention. Do you remember how often you have promised yourself the following morning a walk in the grove of Boulogne, in the garden of de la Mute, or in your own garden, and have violated your promise, alleging at one time it was too cold, and at another too warm, too windy, too moist, or what else you pleased, when in truth it was too nothing but your insufferable love of ease? Oh, that I confess it may have happened occasionally, probably 10 times in a year. Your confession is very far short of the truth. The gross amount is 199 times. Is it possible? So possible that it is fact. You may rely on the accuracy of my statement. You know Monsieur Brillion's gardens and what fine walks they contain. You know the handsome flight of 100 steps which lead from the terrace above to the lawn below. Well, you've been in the practice of visiting this amiable family twice a week, after dinner, and it is a maxim of your own that a man may take as much exercise in walking a mile up and down stairs as in 10 on level ground. What an opportunity was here for you to have had exercise in both these ways. Did you embrace it, and how often? I cannot immediately answer that question. I will do it for you. Not once. Not once? Even so. During the summer you went there at 6 o'clock. You found the charming lady with her lovely children and friends eager to walk with you and entertain you with their agreeable conversation. And what has been your choice? Why, to sit on the terrace and satisfy yourself with the fine prospect, and passing your eye over the beauties of the garden below, without taking one step to descend and walk about in them. On the contrary, you call for tea in the chessboard, and lo, you're occupied in your seat till 9 o'clock, and that besides 2 hours' play after dinner. And then instead of walking home, which you've bestirred you a little, you step into your carriage. How absurd to suppose that all this carelessness can be reconcilable with health, not without my interposition. Well, I'm convinced now of the justness of Poor Richard's remark, that our debts and our sins are always greater than we think for. So it is. You philosophers are sages in your maxims, and fools in your conduct. But do you charge among my crimes that I return in a carriage from Monsieur Brillon's? Well, certainly. For having been seated all the while, you cannot object the fatigue of the day, and cannot want, therefore, the relief of a carriage. Well, what then would you have me do with my carriage? Well, burn it if you choose. You'd at least get heat out of it once in this way. Or if you dislike that proposal, here's another for you. Observe the poor peasants who work in the vineyards and grounds about the villages of Passy and Auteuil and Chaillot, etc. You may find every day among these deserving creatures 4 or 5 old men and women, bent and perhaps crippled by weight of years and too long and too great in labor. After a most fatiguing day, these people have to trudge a mile or 2 to their smoky huts. Order your coachman to set them down. This is an act that will be good for your soul. And at the same time, after your visit to the Brilliants, if you return on foot, that'll be good for your body. Huh. How tiresome you are. Well then, to my office. It should not be forgotten that I am your physician. There. Oh, what a devil of a physician. How ungrateful you are to say so. Is it not I who in the character of your physician have saved you from the palsy, the dropsy, and apoplexy? One or other of which would have done for you long ago, but for me. I submit and thank you for the past, but entreat the discontinuance of your visits for the future, for in my mind one had better die than be cured so dolefully. Permit me just to hint that I have not also been unfriendly to you. I never feed physician or quack of any kind to enter the list against you. Well, if then you do not leave me to my repose, it may be said you are ungrateful too. Well, I can scarcely acknowledge that as any objection. As to quacks, I despise them. They may kill you indeed, but cannot injure me. And as to regular physicians, they are at last convinced that the gout in such a subject as you are is no disease but a remedy. And wherefore cure a remedy? But to our business. There. Oh! For heaven's sake, leave me, and I promise faithfully never more to play at chess, but to take exercise daily and live temperately. Yeah, I know you too well. You promise fair, but after a few months of good health, you will return to your old habits. Your fine promises will be forgotten like the forms of the last year's clouds. Let us then finish the account, and I will go. But I leave you with an assurance of visiting you again at a proper time and place, for my object is your good, and you are sensible now that I am your real friend.